The storm was still shaking the windows when Rena Bai realized she had been holding Yuki Ardent's sleeve for almost 10 minutes. Not her hand. That would have required courage and possibly medical supervision. Just the pale blue sleeve, pinched between her fingers while lightning turned the windows white. Yuki stood beside her without moving. She could have teased the woman who claimed not to fear storms. She did not, she only stayed. Then the private elevator chimed. At 11:47 at night, Yuki's entire body changed. The softness disappeared first, her shoulders straightened, her gray eyes sharpened. The blue-haired woman beside Rena stopped being the quiet alpha who adjusted thermostats and offered wrinkled sleeves. She became the ice queen who owned half the skyline and had once made 3 executives resign with a single raised eyebrow. Rena released her sleeve. "Were you expecting someone?" "No." That answer was too short. "I dislike it." The security panel lit up. "Miss Ardent, Bai Lifen is in the private lobby. She says she will speak to the press if Miss Bai refuses to see her." Rena's stomach dropped so quickly it almost reached the ground floor without her. Yuki touched the panel. "Remove her." "Wait." Rena heard herself say it before courage could object. Yuki looked at her. Thunder rolled over the city. Dumpling saw both women standing tensely and climbed into a shopping bag. He believed emotional conflict should happen somewhere with handles. Rena wrapped both arms around herself. If she came this far, she has something. She has already taken enough. The words were quiet. That made them more dangerous. Rena looked at the elevator. Every old instinct told her to hide. Smile, make a joke. Let her mother enter, take what she wanted, and apologize for not having more. But Yuki had once told her that no one was allowed to make her feel less in this house. This house. Rena inhaled. "Let her up." Yuki's jaw tightened. "Rena, please." Yuki stared at her for a long second, then she pressed the panel. 2 guards. The doors remain open. She does not move closer to Rena unless Rena permits it. Rena tried to smile. Very normal family visit. Your family lost the right to normal. The elevator opened less than a minute later. Bai Lifen stepped out between 2 security guards. Her coat was wet. Her makeup had run beneath her eyes. She smelled of rain, cigarettes, and the sharp floral perfume she wore whenever she wanted strangers to believe she had money. For one weak moment, Rena saw the woman who had braided her hair before school when she was 6. A few good memories could become a prison if you held them tightly enough. Then Lifen looked around the penthouse and smiled. Not at Rena, at the marble, the windows. The evidence that her daughter had finally become profitable. "You look comfortable," Lifen said. Rena's mouth moved automatically. "The emotional damage has better lighting here." Yuki stepped half a pace closer, not in front of Rena, beside her. Lifen's eyes narrowed. "I need money." "No," Rena said. The answer came so quickly that all 3 women looked surprised. The frightened daughter inside Rena screamed that the word could still be taken back. Rena did not take it back. Lifen laughed. "You think wearing rich clothes makes you powerful." Rena looked down at her stretched sweater and frog slippers. "This sweater has 3 holes, and the frogs are currently missing 1 eye. If this is wealth, the economy is worse than I thought." "Enough." Lifen pulled a thin envelope from her coat. "Tomorrow night, Ardent Group holds its winter relief gala. Every investor, board member, and news network will be there. So will Leora Vale." Yuki's scent sharpened like cold cedar split by an axe. Rena felt it, but she kept her eyes on her mother. "What did you do?" "What I had to." That sentence, the family anthem. Lifen tossed the envelope onto the table. Papers slid across the glass. A copy of the original debt agreement, Rena's clinic report, bank transfers. A photograph of Rena entering Ardent Tower with her old suitcase. Lifen pointed at the papers. "Leora has everything. Proof Yuki paid 4 million yuan before you moved in. Proof you cannot produce an heir. Proof this mating arrangement is a lie." Rena's skin went cold. "My medical record was private." Lifen shrugged. "Privacy is for people who can afford it." Yuki moved. 1 second she was beside Rena. The next she stood so close to Lifen that both guards tensed. Yuki did not raise her voice. She never needed to. "You sold your daughter," she said. Then you sold her pain. You will not profit from her a third time. Lyfan's face paled, but greed gave cowardice temporary bones. Pay me 10 million and I call Leora. Everything disappears. Rena stared at her. 10 million. Her mother had named a price for her silence as casually as she had once named a price for Rena's life. Yuki answered, done. Rena turned so sharply her neck hurt. No. Yuki's eyes stayed on Lyfan. My legal team will prepare. No. Rena stepped between them. Yuki stopped speaking. Rena looked at her mother. Rainwater gathered at the edge of Lyfan's coat and dropped onto the marble, tiny dark circles. Temporary stains in an expensive room. If Yuki pays you, Rena said, you will return next month with a new threat, then another. You will keep selling pieces of me until there is nothing left but receipts. Lyfan scoffed. You would rather be humiliated in front of the city. Rena's voice shook. I have survived humiliation before, because I made you strong. The sentence hit harder than a slap. Rena looked at the woman who had hurt her and wanted credit for the scar tissue. Then something inside her became still. No, Rena said. You made me afraid. I made myself kind anyway. That is the part you do not get to claim. Silence filled the penthouse. Even the storm seemed to pause. Lyfan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Rena pointed toward the elevator. Leave. You ungrateful. Yuki took one step forward. Lyfan left. The elevator doors closed on her anger. Rena remained standing until the numbers on the panel descended past 50. Then her knees folded. Yuki caught her before she hit the floor, one arm around her back, one hand beneath her elbow. Strong, immediate, careful, Rena froze against her. Yuki loosened her hold at once. May I? It was ridiculous. Yuki was already holding her. Rena was already shaking, but the question mattered. Rena nodded. Yuki drew her closer. Rena pressed her face into Yuki's shoulder and cried. Yuki offered no solution. She only held her while Dumpling watched from his shopping bag like a lawyer documenting evidence. After a while, Rena whispered, You said done. I would pay any amount to keep her from hurting you. That is romantic in a deeply unhealthy billionaire way. I am aware. Rena pulled back enough to look at her. Do not buy my safety from people who stole it. Yuki's eyes searched her face. Then tell me what you need. No one had ever asked Rena that when the answer mattered. She looked at the papers on the table, her diagnosis, her debt, her private suffering arranged like evidence in a case against her existence. I need to go to the gala, she said. Yuki's expression became winter. No, you asked. I regret asking. Too late. Emotionally binding contract. Rena, they intend to humiliate you. Then let them try while I am in the room. Yuki stared. Rena's hands were still trembling, but her voice was not. I spent my whole life letting other people explain me. My mother explained why I was difficult. Doctors explained why I was defective. Matchmakers explained why no one would choose me. The internet explained why you should be ashamed of me. She touched the clinic report. Tomorrow, I explain myself. Yuki looked afraid. It was the first time Rena had seen that expression clearly on her face. Not fear of Leora, not fear of the board. Fear that Rena would be wounded and Yuki would not be able to stop it. Rena reached for her sleeve again. Stand beside me, she said. Yuki covered Rena's fingers with her own. Always. The next afternoon, Grandma Ardent arrived carrying garment bags, jewelry boxes, and the expression of a general promised a war. She listened to the story while eating steamed buns at the kitchen counter. When Yuki finished, Grandma swallowed, wiped her fingers, and said, I never liked Leora. Rena blinked. That is your strategic assessment? No, my strategic assessment contains words unsuitable for a child. I am 24. Exactly, a child. Grandma rejected a crystal dress because Rena resembled an anxious chandelier, then revealed a simple pale blue silk dress. Rena went quiet. It was the dress Yuki had sent before their first dinner with Grandma, the one Rena had been too frightened to wear. Yuki stood near the window, pretending not to watch. Rena touched the sleeve. This one. Grandma smiled. Good, now the shoes. Rena slowly moved one foot behind the other. Grandma pointed. Show me. Rena revealed the frog slippers. Yuki closed her eyes. Grandma considered them. Not for the gala. The frogs looked betrayed. But, Grandma added, opening the smallest jewelry box, I prepared this. Inside lay a tiny gold pin shaped like a frog. Its eyes were two green stones. One of them appeared slightly larger than the other. Rena's throat tightened. It is uneven, Yuki said. It has personality, Grandma and Rena answered together. Grandma pinned it above Rena's heart. That evening, the Winter Relief Gala filled the Grand Ardent Hotel with white flowers, silver lights, and enough expensive clothing to fund a small country. Cameras flashed against the rain as reporters called Yuki's name before the car door fully opened. Yuki stepped out first. She wore a white suit with a pale blue coat over her shoulders. Her hair shone like ice beneath the lights. Every camera turned toward her. Then she offered her hand into the car. Rena stared at it, not because she was afraid to take it, because this was not the private back seat where their palms had rested unseen. This was the entire city watching. Yuki waited. Rena placed her hand in hers. The crowd erupted with questions. Miss Bai, did Miss Ardent pay your mother? Is the mating contract fake? Will Ardent Group name another heir? Are you infertile? The last question cut through everything. Rena's fingers tightened. Yuki turned toward the reporter with a face that could have ended his career before dessert. Rena squeezed her hand once. Not yet. She lifted her chin and walked inside. The ballroom looked like winter designed by people who had never been cold. Crystal branches stretched over the ceiling. White roses covered the tables. A string orchestra played near a wall of glass overlooking the city. People smiled at Yuki, stared at Rena, then tried to hide it. Rena whispered, I miss the tea shop. We can leave. I also miss instant noodles, but you do not see me abandoning nutrition. You abandon nutrition daily. This is not the time to attack my culture. Yuki's mouth moved. It was small, almost nothing, but Rena saw the smile, so did 3 photographers. Within minutes, the image of the Ice Queen smiling at the frogpin Omega began moving across the internet. For one fragile hour, the gala remained peaceful. When rich people asked what she did, Rena began answering, I make cold houses feel lived in. Yuki overheard. Her ears turned pink. At 9 o'clock, Yuki stepped onto the stage to announce a housing fund for displaced Omegas. The lights dimmed. The room quieted, and Leora Vale appeared at the top of the staircase. She wore red. Leora did not enter rooms. She gave them a reason to regret having doors. Her black hair fell in polished waves. Diamonds flashed at her throat. Bai Lifen walked 3 steps behind her in a borrowed cream dress, looking suddenly sober and terribly pleased with herself. Director Han followed them. Rena felt Yuki's hand close around hers. Leora smiled at the cameras. Forgive the interruption, but before Ardent Group lectures this city about protecting vulnerable Omegas, perhaps the city should know how its chief executive acquired her own. The ballroom inhaled as one body. The screens behind the stage changed. The housing fund logo disappeared. In its place appeared the debt agreement, 4 million yuan, Bai Lifen's signature, Yuki Ardent's company seal, then the clinic report, diagnosis, severe reproductive impairment. Probability of carrying a pregnancy extremely low. Rena heard whispers spread through the room. Infertile, purchased, fake. Each word found an old wound and pressed. Leora descended the staircase slowly. Yuki did not choose Rena Bai. She bought her. Then she presented a Baron Omega as her mate to deceive the board, manipulate succession policy, and protect her position. Director Han stepped forward. For the stability of Ardent Group, I have requested an emergency board review. Yuki released Rena's hand. For one terrible second, Rena thought she was ashamed. Then Yuki walked onto the stage and stood between Rena and the screens. Of course, even now she was making herself a wall. Turn them off, Yuki said. The technician obeyed immediately. Leora laughed. You cannot turn off the truth. Yuki faced the ballroom. The debt payment is real. Shock moved through the crowd. Rena's heart pounded. Yuki continued. Bai Lifen owed money to people who had threatened both her and her daughter. I cleared that debt. And took the daughter, Leora said. I gave Rena the choice to leave. After purchasing her, Yuki's expression did not change, but Rena saw the pain land. Leora turned toward the cameras. A powerful alpha pays a desperate mother, moves an omega into her home, and calls the result consent. Is that the example Ardent Group wishes to set? The question was designed well. That was the worst part. It took the ugliest moment of Rena's life and wrapped it around Yuki's throat. Yuki looked at the board members gathered near the stage. Rena owes me nothing, she said. The original private agreement was amended. The debt language was removed. She has independent accounts, independent counsel, and the unconditional right to leave. Director Han's voice hardened. Yet you continue calling her your mate. Yuki looked at Rena. The whole room followed her gaze. That, Yuki said quietly, is the only part I wish were not an arrangement. Rena forgot to breathe. Leora's smile cracked. Yuki turned back to the board. If my position requires me to deny Rena, then you may have my position. Someone gasped. Director Han went pale. He had expected denial, maybe apology, maybe a controlled scandal. He had not expected Yuki to place the Empire on the table and choose Rena instead. Yuki removed the silver ardent pin from her coat and set it on the podium. My resignation will be delivered before midnight. The room exploded. Reporters shouted. Board members rushed forward. Leora stared at Yuki as if she had spoken in a language money could not translate. Rena stood frozen beneath 1,000 lights. This should have felt like love. Instead, it felt like another debt. 4 million yuan had once hung around her neck. Now an empire did. Smile first, bleed later. Rena smiled. Then she walked away. She remembered only cold air striking her face when a side door opened onto the hotel garden. Rain fell through silver lights. Rena reached the stone path before Yuki caught up. Rena! She kept walking. Rena, stop. The command in Yuki's voice made the omega inside her flinch. Yuki heard it. She stopped immediately. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Please. Rena turned. Rain darkened Yuki's white suit and pasted blue hair to her cheek. She looked less like an ice queen than a woman who had run into a storm because someone she loved was leaving. Rena hated how much that hurt. You cannot resign because of me. I resigned because they demanded that I treat you as disposable. You built that company, and you cannot set it on fire every time someone hurts my feelings. I am not setting it on fire. You left your pin on the podium. That is billionaire arson. Yuki took one step closer, then stopped at a distance that let Rena choose. The company can survive without me. Rena's laugh broke. Can you survive without it? Yuki went still. Rena wiped rain from her face. It did not help. You told me you do not know how to defend the parts of yourself people trained you to ignore. Ardent Group is not just an asset. It is your parents, your grandmother. Every year you survived people trying to take it from you. You are more important. Rena's chest cracked. Do not make me prove I deserve love by watching you lose everything. Yuki's expression changed, pain first, then understanding. That is not what I meant to do. I know, then come back inside. Rena looked toward the ballroom. Not tonight. Yuki's hand moved at her side, almost reaching, stopping. Are you leaving me? The Ice Queen asked the question so quietly that Rena nearly collapsed. I do not know what I am leaving, Rena whispered. A contract, a rescue. A fake mate arrangement that stopped feeling fake before either of us was brave enough to say it. Yuki's eyes shone beneath the rain. Tell me to stay, Rena said. Yuki opened her mouth. Rena waited. But behind the glass doors, board members were approaching. Cameras turned. Security rushed across the garden. The moment closed. Yuki looked toward the danger, only for 1 second. But Rena had spent her whole life surviving inside other people's seconds. She stepped back. I need to choose somewhere without everyone watching, she said. Then she left. Rena did not return to her mother's apartment. She did not run backward. She ran sideways, which was still progress. The tea shop owner, Auntie May, let her sleep in the tiny room upstairs. The radiator sounded like an elderly ghost, and the mattress leaned aggressively left. I missed poverty less than expected, Rena whispered. Dumpling climbed onto her chest. Yuki had sent him with the driver because, according to the note attached to his carrier, legal counsel should remain with the client. The note also said, "The penthouse remains your home. No conditions, no deadline. The car will wait downstairs each morning in case you need it. I will not come unless you ask." There was no signature. There did not need to be. Rena pressed the note over her face. "The refrigerator has learned emotional warfare," she told Dumpling. Dumpling sat on the note. For the next 6 days, Yuki kept her word. She did not come. The car waited every morning. Rena never used it. At 8 each day, breakfast arrived from the penthouse kitchen. Egg cakes browned at the edges, tea made with Rena's cheap leaves. Once, the cakes were slightly burned. Rena stared at them. A small card rested beneath the plate. Interesting texture. Rena laughed so suddenly she cried. At the penthouse, Yuki discovered that silence had weight. Before Rena, it had been clean and efficient. After Rena, it was an abandoned room. The peach mug remained beside the sink. A yellow sock hid beneath the sofa. The ceramic frog guarded the coffee machine. Cat hair covered Dumpling's favorite chair. Yuki did not move any of it. One morning, Yuki touched the thermostat, still set 2 degrees warmer, but could not lower it. That was when Grandma found her. The old woman entered without knocking, carrying dumplings and disappointment. "You look terrible," Grandma said. "Good morning." "It is not." Yuki returned to the dining table. Legal files covered every surface. Leora's finances, Director Hand's communications, the clinic's access records, copies of the debt transfer. The resignation letter Yuki had prepared but not yet delivered because Grandma and the legal department had physically prevented it. Grandma picked up the letter. "Dramatic, necessary, stupid, grandmother. You tried to give away a company because you could not say 3 words to a girl in frog slippers." Yuki looked at the papers. It was not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You can negotiate a merger across 3 countries, but love requires 1 sentence and suddenly you become furniture. Yuki's gaze sharpened. Rena needed space. Then give her space. Do not turn space into surrender. Grandma pushed the resignation letter back across the table. "If you leave the company, Han wins. Leora wins. That gambling woman wins. Worst of all, Rena will believe loving her destroys whatever it touches." Yuki closed her eyes. That was the wound beneath Rena's words in the rain, not that Yuki had chosen her. That Yuki had made the choice look like ruin. Grandma softened by 1 degree, which in ardent women was practically summer. "Protecting someone does not mean standing in front of her until she cannot see her own strength," she said. "Sometimes you stand beside her and let the world discover both of you are dangerous." Yuki looked toward the ceramic frog. Then she tore the resignation letter in half. At the tea shop, Rena tried to become ordinary again. She tied on an apron, swept the floor, and brewed tea for strangers. Ordinary should have felt safe. Instead, people recognized her. Some whispered. Some stared. One woman asked whether Yuki had returned her because she could not produce pups. Rena smiled automatically. Then she remembered the penthouse. "Wrong people run many things. They do not run this house." Rena set the teapot down. "No," she said. "I left because I needed to decide what I wanted." The woman blinked. "But are you really infertile?" The shop went quiet. Old shame rose, hot face, cold hands. Rena breathed through it. "Yes," Rena said. "And the tea still costs 18 yuan. A student near the window laughed, then another customer did. The woman paid and left. Rena's knees shook for 5 minutes, but the sky did not fall. The next day, a young Omega entered wearing cheap green slippers. Not frogs, turtles. She ordered the least expensive tea and sat in the corner for 3 hours. A bruise darkened one wrist. Every time the door opened, she flinched. Rena recognized the posture. The posture of someone trying to make her body smaller than the danger looking for it. Rena brought her an egg cake. "I did not order this," the girl whispered. "It has interesting texture. Legally, I cannot sell it." The girl almost smiled. Her name was Sumi. She was 19. Her family had promised her to an alpha twice her age to settle a business debt. She had run away that morning with 2 shirts, a phone at 12%, and 63 yuan. Rena sat across from her. For a moment, she was looking at herself outside the apartment building. One suitcase, one cat, a face that probably looked like indigestion. "Do you have somewhere safe to go?" Rena asked. Sumi shook her head. Rena looked toward the black car still waiting across the street. She had refused it for 6 days. On the 7th, she opened the door. The driver stepped out immediately. "Miss Bai, I need the number for Yuki's legal team." The driver held out a phone. They have been waiting. Of course they had. Within an hour, Sumi had emergency housing, independent legal counsel, and a medical appointment she could accept or refuse. No one asked her to be grateful. No one called her payment. No one told her where she belonged. Rena sat beside her until the shelter car arrived. Then she went upstairs and cried into a bag of tea leaves because apparently custard buns were not always available during personal growth. That night, Rena called Yuki. Yuki answered before the first ring finished. Neither spoke. Rena could hear Yuki breathing. It was strange how intimacy could live inside such a small sound. "Thank you for helping Sumi," Rena said. "You helped her. Your lawyers did the frightening paperwork. They enjoy frightening paperwork." Rena smiled despite herself. Silence returned, not empty silence, waiting silence. "Are you eating?" Rena asked. "Yes, that was suspiciously fast. I ate breakfast. It is 11 at night. Time is a social framework." Rena laughed. On the other end, Yuki exhaled. It sounded almost like relief. Rena pressed the phone closer. "I am not ready to come home." The word home escaped before she could stop it. Yuki heard. Of course she heard. "I understand," Yuki said. No pressure, no guilt, no offer of money large enough to purchase a decision. Rena closed her eyes. "Good night, luxury refrigerator." "Good night, frog slipper Omega." Rena's eyes opened. Was that teasing? The line went dead. Rena stared at the phone. The refrigerator had developed humor. Civilization was ending. The following morning, Auntie May placed a newspaper on the counter. The front page showed Yuki entering Ardent Tower beneath cameras, the silver company pinned back on her collar. The headline read, "Ice Queen refuses to resign, ORDERS internal investigation." Yuki had withdrawn the resignation. A board vote would take place in 3 days while investigators examined the stolen records, extortion, market manipulation, and coercion. Director Han denied everything. Leora called it revenge. Bai Lifen had disappeared. Rena touched the photograph. Yuki looked cold again, but now Rena understood cold was not emptiness. Sometimes it was armor worn by a woman going back into battle. At noon, a courier delivered a folder. Inside was the original mate contract. Every page carried a red line from corner to corner. Void. On top rested a new document only 1 paragraph long. Rena Bai has no financial, social, reproductive, romantic, or personal obligation to Yuki Ardent or Ardent Group. All funds and property already transferred to her remain hers without condition. Her residence at the Ardent penthouse is hers to use or leave by her choice alone. At the bottom, Yuki had signed. The line beneath Rena's name remained empty. A note was clipped to the page. "You asked what you were leaving. It was never supposed to be a cage. I am sorry I left even 1 lock on the door." Rena sat on the tea shop floor. Auntie May found her there 20 minutes later, holding the document to her chest. "Rich woman?" Auntie May asked. Rena nodded. "Good rich woman or bad rich woman?" Rena wiped her face. "Emotionally incompetent rich woman. Ah, the dangerous kind." That evening, Bai Lifen returned. She entered through the back door of the tea shop wearing sunglasses, though the sun had already set. Her cream gala dress was wrinkled beneath an old coat. Without the hotel lights and borrowed diamonds, she looked smaller. Rena did not mistake smaller for harmless. "Leora refuses to answer my calls," Lifen said. "I am trying to imagine why. She promised me money. People who purchase Betrayal often dislike the seller." Lifen pulled off the sunglasses. Fear had hollowed the skin beneath her eyes. "Director Han says I stole private records. He says I will go to prison. Did you steal them? I am your mother." Rena waited until Lifen looked away. The clinic sent copies to our old address. You opened my mail. I raised you. That was not an answer. Lifen slammed her hand onto the counter. The cups jumped. Rena flinched, then remained where she was. That was new. Lifen saw it. Tell Yuki to make this disappear. No, I am your mother. You keep saying that like it is a key. After everything I sacrificed, Rena laughed. Not because it was funny, because sometimes a lie grew so large it became structurally ridiculous. You sold me. Lifen's face tightened. I saved both of us. Those men would have killed me. Then you could have asked for help. From whom? Rena thought of Sumi in turtle slippers, a stranger who had entered a tea shop and received more protection in 1 hour than Rena's mother had offered in 24 years. From me, Rena said, before you turned me into money. For a second, Lifen looked old and exhausted by the life she had created. Rena almost reached for her. She folded her hands instead. I will give your lawyer a record of everything Leora and Han told me, Lifen said. In exchange, Yuki protects me. From prison. From consequences. Rena shook her head. No, Lifen's fear became anger. Then what do you want? Rena considered the question. Once, Rena might have asked for an apology. Now she knew apologies could not be forced without becoming another performance. Tell the truth, Rena said. Give the evidence to investigators, accept whatever follows. Yuki's lawyers can make sure you are safe and treated fairly. They will not erase what you did. And after that, Rena's voice softened. After that, get help for the gambling, not for me. I am done being the reason you promised to change. Lifen stared at her. Will you visit me? The question found the 6-year-old inside Rena, the child with braided hair, the child who still believed love meant never closing a door. Rena let herself grieve that child. I do not know, she said honestly, but I will not let you sell me again just because part of me still wants a mother. Lifen began to cry. Rena did not comfort her. Cruelty would have been enjoying the tears. Healing was allowing them without accepting responsibility for drying them. The next morning, Lifen entered a lawyer's office and gave a statement. The evidence changed everything. Leora had paid Lifen for Rena's clinic report. Director Han had provided the gala access, the company seal displayed on the altered debt slide, and internal board documents. Their messages showed a plan to force Yuki's resignation, crash Ardent Group shares, and purchase control through allied investors. The scandal was power wearing morality as perfume. There was more. The original 4 million yuan transfer had not gone to buy Lifen. Yuki had paid the gambling creditors directly, then filed the debt as discharged. The purchase agreement Lifen displayed at the gala contained a second page Rena had never seen. No transfer of person, service, reproductive right, or marital obligation shall be recognized. Yuki had added it before the car ever arrived at Rena's apartment, before the frog slippers, before the luxury refrigerator insult, before Rena had confessed she was infertile. Yuki had not known what Rena looked like when she made certain no one could own her. Rena read the page 3 times, then she called the driver. Take me to Ardent Tower. The board vote began at 4 o'clock. Rain pressed against the windows. 21 directors sat around the black table while lawyers filled the back wall. Director Han's chair was empty. He had been suspended that morning. Leora's agency had dropped her. Her public statement blamed misunderstanding, emotional distress, and an unnamed assistant. No one believed it. Yuki sat at the head of the table in a dark blue suit. She looked calm. Only Grandma, seated 2 chairs away, noticed that Yuki had not touched her tea. The lead independent director cleared his throat. The evidence concerning Director Han is serious. However, questions remain regarding Miss Ardent's judgment, the public mating claim, and the reputational damage to this company. Yuki folded her hands. Then ask your questions. Is Rena by your mate? The room went silent. Yuki looked at the empty chair reserved for outside counsel. No, she said. Grandma's head snapped toward her. Several directors began whispering. Yuki continued before they could misunderstand. Not under a contract, not under a debt, not under any claim I have the right to make without her. The conference room doors opened. Rena stood there wearing her old sweater, a dark skirt and frog slippers. She had planned to wear shoes. Then she decided courage was already uncomfortable enough. Dumpling sat in his carrier beside the security guard because legal counsel had returned to headquarters. Every person in the room stared. Rena looked at Yuki. Good answer. Yuki stood so quickly her chair rolled backward. For one unguarded second, relief transformed her face. Not Ice Queen, not Chief Executive, just Yuki. Rena walked to the empty chair and sat down. The lead director frowned. Miss Bai, this is a closed proceeding. Grandma tapped her cane once. She is the proceeding. No one argued with Grandma Ardent. Governments had tried and suffered. Rena placed the voided contract, the original debt page, and her clinic report on the table. Her hands shook. She let them. Bravery was not a body without fear. It was a body making room for fear and speaking anyway. You want to know whether Yuki showed poor judgment, Rena said. She did. Yuki blinked. Rena continued. She believed she could fix every threat with money. She believed protecting me meant making decisions faster than I could understand them. She nearly resigned from the company she loves because she thought sacrifice was the only language strong enough to prove I mattered. The directors watched Yuki. Yuki watched only Rena. But choosing me was not poor judgment, Rena said. Clearing a violent debt was not corruption. Refusing to treat an infertile Omega like defective property was not instability. And if this board believes compassion makes a leader weak, then your problem is not Yuki's judgment. It is your imagination. Silence. Rena had imagined this room many times. In every version, her voice cracked and everyone laughed. Now her voice did crack. No one laughed. She touched the medical report. Yes, I am infertile. Since strangers seem deeply invested in my uterus, let us save time. Grandma coughed into her hand. It sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Rena looked around the table. I cannot promise the ardent bloodline a child. I can promise that this company's housing fund helped a 19-year-old Omega escape a forced mating last week. I can promise there are thousands more like her. If legacy means producing someone with your name, I cannot help you. If legacy means leaving people safer than you found them, perhaps we have work to do. The head of legal slowly lowered her pen. The public relations director leaned forward. One of the older board members looked at the housing proposal in front of him for the first time. Rena turned to Yuki. I do not want you to resign. Yuki's throat moved. I also do not want to be hidden, purchased, protected into silence, or treated like a fragile object in a bluecoat museum. There are other colors, Yuki said automatically. Rena stared. Yuki's ears turned pink. The entire board witnessed it. Grandma smiled like a woman whose investment had matured. Rena fought her own smile. I want a seat in the work that uses my story, independent from you, paid properly, with people who know more than I do and will tell me when I am wrong. Yuki answered without hesitation. Done. Rena raised one finger. We have discussed that word. I support your proposal, Yuki corrected. Better. The lead director removed his glasses. Are you requesting a position at Ardent Group? No, Rena said. I am requesting that the housing fund become an independent foundation with outside oversight. I will work there if its board hires me. Yuki does not get to place me in a chair because she loves me. Every head turned. Rena stopped breathing. She had said it. Not privately, not safely. In front of 21 directors, 12 lawyers, one terrifying grandmother, and a cat who had begun screaming from his carrier because the meeting lacked snacks. Yuki's face went completely still. Because she what? Grandma asked, enjoying herself far too much. Rena looked at the ceiling. I would like to resign from speaking. Yuki crossed the space between them. She stopped beside Rena's chair. No, Rena looked up. Yuki's gray eyes were no longer cold. They were terrified. Hope could frighten a person more deeply than loss when she had never learned to trust it. Do not resign from that sentence, Yuki said. The lead director cleared his throat. Perhaps we should recess. Grandma stood. Finally, an intelligent corporate decision. The board filed out with unnatural speed. Within 2 minutes, only Rena and Yuki remained in the conference room. Dumplings carrier sat outside with Grandma, who claimed attorney-client privilege. Rain moved across the windows. The same city waited below. Rena stood. Yuki did not move closer. "You tore up the resignation," Rena said. "Yes, you sent me the contract. Yes, you burned the egg cakes." Yuki looked offended. The pan was unsuitable. It was imported. Poorly imported. Rena laughed. The sound broke the last wall between them. Yuki's shoulders lowered. "I am sorry," she said. Rena's smile faded. "I thought giving things up would make my choice clear. I did not understand it would make you feel like another cost." Rena's eyes burned. Yuki continued. "You were right. I know how to defend assets. I do not know how to love without turning love into protection and protection into control. You are improving. Slowly, glacially, appropriate." Rena took one step closer. "The contract is gone," she said. "Yes, the debt is gone. It was never yours. The fake mating arrangement is gone." Yuki's eyes did not leave hers. "Yes." Rena's heart beat against her ribs. "Then ask me something real." Yuki went pale. The richest alpha in the city. The woman who could purchase buildings between breakfast and lunch. The ice queen who could silence a boardroom with one look. Completely terrified of one poor Omega in damaged frog slippers. Rena waited. Yuki inhaled. "Rena, bye, will you come home?" Rena's throat tightened. "Why?" Yuki's hands curled at her sides. No hiding behind practicality. No board. No bloodline, no contract. "Because the penthouse is cold without you," Yuki said. "Because I hate sweet coffee, but I drink it when you make the wrong cup. Because your cat has destroyed 2 chairs, and I check both each night to see if he is there. Because I know the sound of your slippers in the hall and the shape of your mug beside mine. Because every room you enter becomes a place I want to remain." Rena's tears spilled. Yuki's voice shook. "Because I love you." There it was. Not a fact pretending it could not flirt. Not adjusted temperature. Not washed blankets or wool socks or illegal claws changed in silence. Love, spoken plainly in a room built for strategy. Rena wiped her face with both hands. "That was disgustingly romantic." Yuki looked stricken. "Is that bad?" "No, I just need a warning before you develop emotional competence." "Rena." She stepped close enough to touch Yuki's coat. "I love you too." Yuki closed her eyes. The expression on her face was not victory, it was shelter. Beneath Rena's palm, Yuki's heart beat far too fast for a luxury refrigerator. Yuki opened her eyes. "May I kiss you?" Rena pretended to consider it. "You may submit a formal application." Yuki's face fell. Rena caught the front of her coat. Approved. Yuki kissed her gently, and Rena's heart broke for every version of herself that had believed powerful hands could only take. Yuki's fingers rested at her waist, waiting even now. Rena leaned closer. Permission. Choice. Warmth. The second kiss was less careful. Somewhere outside the conference room, Grandma cheered. Dumplings screamed. A security guard dropped something metal. Rena pulled back, horrified. "They are listening." Yuki looked toward the door. Her Ice Queen expression returned with lethal speed. Footsteps scattered. Rena laughed against her shoulder. At 5:30, the board voted to retain Yuki as chief executive by 19 votes to 1. Grandma spent the rest of the day trying to identify the one. Director Han was removed from the board and charged after investigators confirmed the extortion and market manipulation plan. Leora issued 3 apologies, each longer and less sincere than the last. When the public remained angry, she announced a spiritual retreat. Rena called it vacation with vocabulary. Bai Lifen entered a rehabilitation program while awaiting the legal outcome of her role in the extortion. Yuki's lawyers kept their promise. Lifen was safe, represented, and treated fairly. They did not erase the consequences. Rena did not visit for 3 months. When she finally did, she brought no money, only tea. Their relationship did not heal in one conversation. Some things did not become beautiful just because a story needed an ending. But Rena left when Lifen blamed her, returned when Lifen spoke honestly, and learned that a boundary was not punishment. It was the shape safety took when love alone was not enough. The Independent Housing Foundation opened 6 months later. They named it Second Cup House because cheap leaves could be brewed twice, and people deserved another beginning after the world decided they were used up. The first floor held a free community tea shop. Above it were emergency rooms, legal offices, a clinic, childcare, and apartments for Omegas escaping coercion. Sumi became the foundation's first paid peer counselor after completing her training. She still wore turtle slippers. Rena was hired as community director by a board on which Yuki had exactly 1 vote and Grandma behaved as if she had 12. On opening day, reporters asked whether Second Cup House existed because Rena could not have children. Rena looked directly into the cameras. "It exists because family is bigger than reproduction," she said, "and because no person should ever become payment for somebody else's debt." Behind her, Yuki stood in a pale blue coat, not in front, beside. That photograph traveled farther than the clinic report ever had. The useless infertile Omega became the woman frightened Omegas asked for by name. The Cold Ice Queen reviewed every consent policy until lawyers begged her to develop a hobby. She chose egg cakes. They remained terrible. 1 year after the storm, Grandma Ardent hosted their mating ceremony in the family courtyard. Red lanterns hung beneath the plum trees. Employees, shelter residents, Auntie May, Sumi, and too many reporters filled the garden. Rena wore the pale blue dress. Under it, she wore frog slippers. This time on purpose, Yuki wore white. Her blue hair brushed her jaw. The silver ardent pin was fastened at her collar, and beside it sat a tiny gold frog with uneven green eyes. Rena saw it and began crying before the ceremony started. "You copied me," she whispered. Grandmother insisted. Grandma shouted from the front row, "Liar." Yuki's ears turned pink. When it was time for vows, Yuki unfolded a page. Rena stared. "You prepared a contract. It is not a contract. There are numbered clauses. They are organized promises." Rena looked at the guests. "I am making a spreadsheet." Yuki began reading. 1, I will never ask you to earn your place in our home. Rena stopped smiling. 2, I will stand beside you when you fight your own battles and in front of you only when you ask. The courtyard became quiet. 3, I will remember that care without choice becomes control. Rena's eyes filled. 4, I will share my tea, my company, my terrible egg cakes, and every temperature setting I possess. Laughter moved through the guests. Yuki looked down at the final line. Then she set the page aside. 5, she said without reading. I will choose you when the city is watching. I will choose you when no one is watching. I will choose you when you are brave, when you are afraid, when you are funny because you are hurting, and when you no longer need humor to survive the hurt. Rena's tears fell freely. Not because you need protection. Not because I need a shield. Not because of a debt, a board, a bloodline, or an agreement. Yuki took her hand. Because you are Rena, and you make my life feel like home. Rena looked at the woman everyone called cold. Then she looked at the people from Second Cup House, at Sumi's turtle slippers, at Auntie May wiping her eyes with an apron, at Grandma pretending she had dust in both eyes, at Dumpling sitting beside the rings. No, on the rings. Dumpling, Rena whispered. The cat picked up Yuki's ring in his mouth and ran. The ceremony collapsed into chaos. Sumi chased Dumpling beneath a table. Grandma offered dried fish. Yuki crawled beneath a bench while reporters recorded the richest woman in the city bargaining with a cat. Rena laughed until she could not breathe. It was not elegant or perfect. It was alive. Eventually, the ring was recovered from inside one of Grandma's slippers. Yuki returned to Rena with grass on her trousers and cat hair on her sleeve. Your lawyer is corrupt, she said. He accepts seafood retainers. Yuki placed the ring on Rena's finger. Rena had prepared no numbered clauses. She had tried. Every sentence sounded too polished, too borrowed, too small, so she told the truth. When my mother sold me, I thought the worst thing that could happen was belonging to someone cruel, Rena said. Then you taught me that I never had to belong to anyone. Yuki's fingers tightened around hers. You gave me a door before you asked me to stay. You gave me space before you asked to touch me. You called my body safe when everyone else called it useless. And when your love became too much like protection, you listened when I told you to stand beside me." Rena smiled through her tears. "I do not belong to you, Yuki Ardent." The guests went silent. Yuki's eyes shone. Rena lifted their joined hands. "I choose you, every day, freely, that is better." Yuki kissed her beneath the red lanterns. Grandma applauded first. Dumpling attempted to steal the second ring. 6 months later, the penthouse was no longer silent. Rugs covered the emotionally hostile marble. Magnets crowded the refrigerator. The ceramic frog had acquired a wife and 3 children because Rena claimed representation mattered. Yuki's blue coats still hung in perfect order. Mostly. One sleeve had been steamed. Rena denied responsibility. Dumpling had gained weight despite 2 veterinarians, a nutrition plan, and Yuki's repeated claim that she never fed him under the table. She was feeding him under the table when Rena caught her. "Interesting," Rena said from the kitchen doorway. Yuki slowly lowered the piece of salmon. Dumpling ate it before evidence could be destroyed. "He looked hungry," Yuki said. "He always looks hungry. He is shaped like a legal consequence." Yuki looked at the cat. "He has a demanding profession." Rena placed 2 cups of tea on the table and sat beside her. Outside, the city glowed beneath an early winter sky. Somewhere below, people were still arguing about bloodlines, status, proper omegas, and the correct shape of a family. They could argue. Wrong people still ran many things. They did not run this house. Yuki reached across the table, palm up. She still asked without words. Rena placed her hand in hers. Their fingers laced together this time. On the floor, Dumpling climbed into a cardboard box that had once held imported crystal and went to sleep. The tiny ceramic frog watched from beside the coffee machine. The thermostat remained 2 degrees warmer. Rena looked around the penthouse that had once felt like a museum and understood something simple. Home was not the place a powerful alpha took her. Home was the place where no one owned her, where her no was heard, where her yes was treasured, and where love made room for her to become more than the pain that introduced her. Everyone had called her a useless, infertile Omega. They had been wrong about useless. They had been wrong about unwanted. And they had been most wrong about what kind of life could grow from a woman who could not give birth. Because Rena Bai had built a family, a refuge, a future, and a love large enough to warm even the coldest ice queen in the city. And this time, when the storm came, Rena did not need to hold Yuki's sleeve. She held her hand. If you enjoyed seeing Rena choose herself, Yuki finally confess her love, and the useless Omega proved the whole city wrong. Comment ***, part 3 below. And tell us what you want next. Rena and Yuki protecting another runaway Omega, Grandma Ardent starting a war with the board, or Dumpling becoming the most expensive legal counsel in the city.